Over the past 2 weeks, I think you've seen AI stocks literally go berserk. I want to talk about the ones I think that have potential, the ones that have the least potential. Now, it's important to understand why most of these are moving. We'll also go into SoFi for another update. It's not related to AI, but I do think it's one of the cheaper names you guys are asking about, and I think it's actually a good name. I think long term it makes sense. Short term options, not really that good of a deal in my opinion, but we'll explain everything in detail. Now, it's important to understand what happened and what really got AI names running the way they are. So number one, you had Nancy Pelosi obviously buying Tempest AI. I think that's what really shocked everyone initially. Is it was a pretty big buy from her, and it was more of a speculative name, right? And we'll go into Tempest here in a second. But the other big part here was JD Vance. If you guys recall or watch what was happening, he basically talked at this AI summit, and he basically was going into the restrictions that we're putting on it and that we might kill it basically with regulation, similar to how regulation on crypto caused it to take a long time before it could really scale to what it is today, right? And BBAI, which is the one that we're going to discuss first here, they actually had a government contract. Now, if you follow what I'm talking about with Tesla, I think government contracts are huge for these companies. And it's really worth mentioning, like, we're not talking about Palantir today, but that's how Palantir really got its start, was a lot of government contracts and then slowly scaled to other commercial products, right? And other, B2B, after really focusing on government. So that's really important to think about and understand that government contracts are a really good way to start out. But I will say, you have to take a step back and look at what these companies are actually doing. Just like quantum names, a month ago, everyone was crazy about quantum. But when you look at BBAI, and the numbers don't lie. Like, it's very important to understand numbers do not lie. And when you look at just the overall earning, can't even pull up all their earnings. It's going to be so slow. But yeah, they pulled in 41 million in September. Before that, 40, 33, 40. Pretty lackluster, right? Going to market caps at 2 billion. I mean, what are we talking about? Like, your 2% of earnings, your revenue is 2% of your market cap. I mean, still overvalued. But either way, that's where you're at right now. It's also important to understand what's happening here on the chart. People are going to be mad. People aren't going to like what I have to say. But you have to realize what the chart actually does. And this is BBAI over the past 2-3 years, right? You had your big pop over here in 2022. You went straight down. Everyone was saying this was going to rally. And eventually, you went down to the abyss, and you bounced from 50 cents into $6 and then back down to $1.50, back up to $4. And then more recently, with the AI hype that's happened, like, the chart actually looked decent. You slowly scaled up, higher lows. This actually had a potential for a decent entry if you were playing it. Like, I was not playing this, but I will say right now that's halfway decent. Get above $4, $4.50, you shoot up. Great run there. Can't complain, right? But what I'll say here is you start capping on how much you can really make here. It's unlikely that BBI is going to continue running that much further. Now, if it gets above $10, I could see options becoming a big deal here and getting a lot of the more dated monthlies in the money, and that could really cause some gamma. But long term, like, unless this is what has to keep happening, right? And the news will hold it up for whatever the time may be. But unless you can continue getting these contracts, you're going to get hit again. So that has to be the warning here. I'm not going to blindly tell you it's going to $20, $15, anything like that, because there's no real value besides one, like, piece of good news, right? Now, if you dig enough, you can convince yourself that this is a great play. But again, that's my personal opinion. I'll update you guys on it in a few more days, whatever it may be. Now, the next one I'm going to go over is going to be SoFi. Last one I'm going to go over is Tempest AI, which I kind of covered earlier, but this plays right into more of this video, right? So SoFi, I get the SoFi question a lot. I don't think short dated options, like if you're day trading, like, you should not be looking at SoFi for a day trade viewpoint. From a chart perspective, and like this is you might not like that I'm going back to a daily chart, 4 hour or a weekly, but when you can go to higher time frames and look at what's happening there, it has to get you excited. Now, let's talk about a few things about SoFi that's really good compared to some of their competitors, right? Now, they are specifically, when it comes to loans, more towards student loans and things along those lines. Now, they do refinancing and all types of stuff for homes and stuff like that. So it's worth mentioning. They have a lot of stuff they're doing, right? But what makes them unique as of into 2022 into 2023 is they wanted to get into the banking business. So when you have this great run and you dip down to like $5-6, it gets really interesting down here, right? And now you're moving up. And I do think this is a steady long-term name. That's my viewpoint. Like, buy it, hold, forget, the end. And right now you're holding your key supports, $14. You came back down into it. You can see it was your previous little SR flip back here. You mounted that. You're pushing back up above 16. You have real breakout potential into 20, which is where I'd probably be targeting $19, $20, and 22, right? But this is where things were interesting. So if you go back on SoFi, and you have to do a little research, but this is from 2022. And this is the only reason why people should like love SoFi, right? So if you don't know, they took over and they acquired Golden Pacific Bancorp. Now, what's important about this? If you want to become a bank, it's very difficult to do for a company. However, the easier way to do it is to acquire a bank. Because if you can acquire a bank, then you kind of you skip through a lot of the loopholes you have to jump through, right? And to get qualified and all that type of stuff, right? So this was the easy way to do it, and it was successful. And this was back February 2022 was when they made the deal. And then by the time it was like near the end, mid end of 2022 when all this got finalized. So important to understand that. Now, again, this enabled them to do their checking accounts, savings accounts, things along those lines. Again, you can do your trading through them as well. I don't recommend trading on SoFi, but a lot of cool tools. And now the cool thing about this is when you're using money, think about it from a marketing standpoint. If I'm going to someone to get my loan, then the higher chance, then I also might want to invest my stocks. I might want to have a one-stop shop for all my finances, right? Now, you might want to diversify and have multiple bank accounts, but things along those lines make sense. And this is the cool part of SoFi, and that's what they did. They wanted to create a whole little ecosystem, and that's the cool part here. So, like, when I look at SoFi, it's beyond like hype or short term. It's long term. What they're doing makes sense, but I'm not going into SoFi expecting the stock to go to $25 in the next 2 months, right? You need to also understand the sector that you're in. Now, I'm unsure if this would be considered a CRE, a regional bank. I don't think it would be considered that, but I also don't think it'd be considered inside of XLF. Either way, both bank ETFs are killing it. So smaller regional banks rallying very well since, your banking crisis back in 2023, basically only going up, no real pullbacks. XLF has been at all-time highs for God knows how long. Like, you literally just make higher lows every single day. I mean, you've been making all-time highs since July of 2024. You had a nice pullback, and then you're in price discovery again. Goes to show banks are doing well. Investment banks, traditional banks, and everything in general is killing it because of interest rates and where they're at. Now, to get more business for SoFi, when I expect their numbers to really improve as far as revenue, etc., I think that will start improving when interest rates lower. Now, you might say, well, they're going to make less money, this or that. Possibly. However, if you have lower rates, you're just going to get more customers for your loans, refinancing, etc. And I guarantee, like, if let's say, I think mortgage rates right now are around 7%, 7.3, something like that. FHA is around 6.7 right now. So that's 30-year fixed. Now, if you go along those lines, and let's say somehow rates get down to 4.5, 5%, you're going to see a flood of refinance applications coming across the board for home loans, which I think could benefit SoFi. Refinancing student loans, everything across the board. So things that should get you excited, and this is where the business model gets really interesting. Okay, so again, food for thought. What I look at SoFi, I think long term it's still solid. Like below 14, I could see it pulling back, but like as long as you're holding 14, I think it's a buy, and be patient there. Now the next one we're mentioning is our top dog, right? It's the leader in the race. SoundHound, right? No, I'm just joking. You know what? I'll go over SoundHound because we're here, right? I don't really want to cover them, but we're here. We're making trash AI stock video. We'll go over it. SoundHound's garbage, for real. I kid you not. I literally got. Let me pull up this text. This is a real text. I am not kidding. He might get mad at me. I'm not showing his number, so he shouldn't care. But he literally. I did my taxes. I kid you not. I did my taxes about 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago. And I get this text from my tax guy, literally the day after I leave. And this is what he says to me. Tell me about a stock with a symbol SoundHound, S-O-U-N. It's called SoundHound AI. I want to buy a good bit. Think it's going to go up over the next couple of years. So it's really hyped up, went over more and more. And I basically told him, look, if you want to do anything, just wait till you come back into this major level. Currently, when he called me about it, it was at $13, $14. I said, don't touch it, yada, yada, yada. Just wait. If you want to buy it then. And Lord and behold, guess what happens? SoundHound is, again, it's a trash name. There's no real value here. You're moving based on hype, and you came right into that level today, 10.2. So if you're going to buy, this is, in theory, a buying opportunity. Now, again, you get below 10.27, you're in a world of pain, probably coming down to $7, $6. But again, this goes back into the viewpoint of, do these companies actually produce anything? Do they actually make money? We call names like NVIDIA and, these other semiconductor names bubbles, but they actually bring in money. They bring in money to support overall growth. We call them Palantir. Some people call it Palantir a bubble, but at least it's growing. Like it has, like you can look at its revenue. It's rapidly growing. So there's something there, right? Or we look at HIMS. HIMS is overvalued, but guess what? HIMS stock is growing and the revenue is growing pretty fast as well. These AI names, you have to understand, they're moving primarily based off of hype, off of social media and people getting excited. And you have to understand, they'll eventually, they'll get pops and then they'll come straight back down. Like a good stock, that's why you don't see, this is why you don't see like Sofi. So why doesn't Sofi move like this? Sofi, it's a pretty steady. Yeah, you were coming down in 2024. Banks were kind of, again, just go look at banks and how they're moving. But again, once you started breaking out, you've held up basically since October, right? Robinhood breaks out. Guess what happens? It never really looks back to $14, right? You start to get steady upside. But when your name just runs randomly and then crashes randomly, it's not typically a great name. You don't see good stocks behave like trash stocks. There's a clear difference. And you can cry manipulation, cry whatever you want, but it's just the facts of the matter, right? And so people are going to hate this. They're going to get mad. It is what it is. Now, the last one is Tempest AI. And again, I will say, if from a technical viewpoint, if you're buying SoundHound, this is where you have to do it. This is logical, right? Just like if you want to go short, you get a retest $17, $18 up here, go short back down. Like makes logical sense where you're at. You lose support, the end, right? It's very simple to see. Okay. The last one is Tempest AI. I've covered Tempest AI in my previous video here. I've go over Tempest AI a lot on Twitter because I'm personally trading it. I've been talking about this since basically $30. It's a major, major winner, and I think it's probably going to continue going up. We said we mount $78, $80. It's an easy long into $100, $95, $100, and you're getting that action. Now, cool thing about Tempest and what's happening here, number one, Pelosi's all in on it. She's going crazy on it. You have Kathy Wood buying it. So it's not just one insider buying, one senator, whatever it may be. That's really what's going on here. The other part of this too is you talked about what was happening with the options chain here as well. And the option chain definitely has me excited as well because you're seeing, again, it has me excited for the sense of short term. I want to be clear about that. Not long term. I don't look at Tempest AI as long term like, okay, this is going to be a real winner. I do think Tempest AI will eventually get wrecked. I really do. So be careful. And I'm not telling you when to buy here. If you probably missed your opportunity as of right now, I will say. Because you started, and you can tell when they start adding in these new option chains, and they're going to keep adding them in. But these were, I think in my last video, I went over this. You were at around like, you only had $105 strikes. Well, they added going into Friday, $125 strikes, right? And so what we traded in Discord, again, you can type down below and ask them, verify, were the $100 strikes. We got these around at like $82. We got the $100 strikes yesterday for $4.20. Today they hit highs of like $9.70. So those things are moving. I mean, they are just moving, right? And that's what you want to see. Like I think highs. We can go back here. Where were they? Is this Tempest? For some reason, it says 890. I know for a fact you went higher than 890. Yeah, 970 right there was your high in the end of the contract. So that's what you're seeing. That's what you want to see overall. But now that they add these, I will say, like you have a little bit more left in the tank. In my opinion, if you have a position, I like having some runners here. But what I will say is when they start adding these contracts is typically where you start getting people trapped in. You can see here too, there's no open interest because they just added those contracts. You see volume coming in, and look, you have 1,800 contracts being bought for the 125s for March 21st. You go further out, you can see more contracts being bought in here as well. Now these, again, I mentioned that actually that's 85, but you can see no open interest there as well. People aren't really buying those. What people are doing is they're YOLOing. They're YOLOing into short-dated contracts right now. There's none being bought even for like leaps on the stock, which is a pretty bad sign. But again, what you're saying is people YOLOing into these, and that's where people get stuck. That's where people get trapped, and that's a crappy position to have. So again, make your money here. Don't fall in love with the play. Still looks good. I like what's happening with Tempest. Really solid. You get back below $80, I'd probably steer clear for the time being. That's going to be a signal to hit the pause and hit the brakes on this one. Made some good money on it. I still think we make more on it. But again, what I'm watching clearly there. So again, just going through the names very quickly. Sofi, Tempest are my top names here. Soundhound, and then BBAI. BBAI, I will say, the chart doesn't look as bad. I just don't think they actually bring in money. I don't think this is going to be a sustained move. I would have to bet on the downside coming in over the next few weeks. Maybe you get another 2 weeks of upside. I don't think it holds out. It is worth mentioning with these AI names right now that you are getting semiconductors moving very strong, like NVIDIA, even AMD, AVGO, Intel, they're all moving really good. Like even the worst ones are moving, right? So that is helping AI, probably even quantum over the next few weeks as well. But keep your head on a swivel, because I'm telling you, as fast as these names go up, they'll go down even faster, in my opinion. Follow for more content. I appreciate you. See you next time.